Good afternoon. It is Saturday, May 29th, 2010. It's Memorial Day weekend. Hope everybody is will have a couple days off to enjoy with their friends and family. Today I want to talk about something a little more abstract. Lately I've been talking a lot about current events. So let's go back to theories of governance and so forth. I want to talk about natural rights today, and I'm going to offer a stern critique of Thomas Jefferson. Now, Thomas Jefferson is probably my favorite president that we've ever had. He rivals, or Andrew Jackson, probably Grover Cleveland, Calvin Coolidge rival him. But all three of those had their own faults, and Jefferson, of course, had his faults too. But Jefferson's probably my favorite. Now, of course, everybody knows Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. And what did he say that all humans have a natural right to? He said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we have been trained to believe in schools and so forth that this was the foundation of our country and so forth. But I'm going to argue in this blog today that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness was one of the greatest errors that Jefferson ever made, and one of the greatest errors in American history. Now, where did Jefferson get this idea about natural rights? He got it from John Locke. In 1690, John Locke published the second treatise on civil government, I believe. Might not have the title exactly right. But Locke, in his book, talked about how humans have a natural right in the natural state without any government. Humans have a natural right to life, liberty, and property. Not pursuit of happiness, but property. What this meant was that no government, or in Locke's view, no government should violate these rights because this is the natural state of man. If all of a sudden the state was eliminated tomorrow, in order for order to prevail, humanity would have to recognize the right to life, liberty, and property. And this was Locke's theory. Now, Jefferson, when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, of course, was heavily influenced by Locke, and he had probably agreed with him. In fact, I'm almost certain that he did, that property is a natural right. So why did he replace property with the pursuit of happiness, and how are those two things different, and how was that change detrimental to our country? Well, property is very specific. It says that the state, no individual, no government can take away someone else's property. You worked for it, you earned it, it's yours. Nobody else can take it. It's very specific. There's really no way around it. Pursuit of happiness is a lot more vague and ambiguous. What does that mean? And you see some of the congressmen who supported the Obama's healthcare bill cited the pursuit of happiness. Well, I mean, what does that mean? Now, what did Jefferson mean by that? He didn't mean that all humans have a guaranteed right to happiness. He merely meant that all human beings have a right to pursue happiness. That's a lot different. Not all human beings are going to find happiness. But it's still very vague, and it can be interpreted in very different ways that a natural right to property can be interpreted. I think we do have a natural right to the pursuit of happiness. I'm not denying that. But I would venture to say that the pursuit of happiness is not all too different from liberty. If you have liberty, and by liberty I mean the right to do what you want as long as you're not harming anyone else, or as long as you're not violating the natural rights of others. That's liberty. Few people even know what liberty even means anymore. But that's what liberty means. If you have liberty, you have to have the pursuit of happiness, right? They go together. Property, Jefferson made a mistake by not putting property in the Declaration of Independence. Now, I understand why he might not have, because if you say that humans have a natural right to property, then it would be difficult for the United States government to levy taxes, which I'm fine with. And there might have been a few other reasons too. For whatever reason, he took out property and replaced it with the pursuit of happiness. And I don't think Jefferson realized what he did when quite the impact of that change. Because look at what we have now. We have a federal income tax. Does the federal income tax violate our natural right to property? I would say absolutely yes. If you work hard, whether you're a worker in a factory, a worker, or a farmer, or just working for any sort of private company, and the federal government takes 30% or 40% of your wages, I mean, that's violating your property rights. That was your property, and the government said, no, we're going to take it. We're going to take 30% of your property. That violates the natural right to property. Does it violate the pursuit of happiness? Maybe not. See what I mean? That's the difference. It's not very obvious that it violates the pursuit of happiness. You could make the argument that it violates liberty. But if Jefferson kept property in the Declaration of Independence, it clearly violates natural right to property, in my view. Eminent domain is another one. Totally abused by government. Eminent domain was originally meant for if there was a dire need for some public service or whatnot, the government could seize someone's property and compensate them for it. Now, I'm against that in and of itself, but the original way that was intended is not the way that's used today. Eminent domain is totally abused. There's been several cases in the last couple of years where innocent families who have had farms on a certain piece of land for generations have had their property seized by government. That violates someone's natural right to property. Does it violate the pursuit of happiness? Possibly, but it's not as clear. Again, this is why Jefferson made a mistake by leaving out property. Social Security and Medicare, in my view, violates the natural right to property. Because what it does, it says that if I work hard for a paycheck, the government has a right to steal, or to take my a certain percentage of my wages into the Social Security fund. That, by the way, won't even exist when I come around to retirement. Slavery. We don't have slavery anymore. But slavery violated the black man and black woman's natural right to property. The black man and a black woman would work in the fields, and they would produce, they would make things, they would labor. And a person's labor is their property. When you work, your labor, the product of your labor is your property. And so what slavery was, the government said, nah, that doesn't count. We're going to allow other people to take your property, your labor, or your body. I mean, slavery was the theft of a black man or black woman's body, literally, and that violated the natural right to property. So many crimes that happened in the Japanese internment camps violated natural right to property and natural right to liberty and all those. So many of the problems that we've seen in this country have violated the natural right to property. Have they violated natural right to pursuit of happiness? Maybe, but it's not as clear. When government insists that they have a right to take your property, what they're saying is that the state, that the government, is of higher importance than you, the individual. And even though Jefferson didn't intend for that to be, when he replaced property with the pursuit of happiness, that was the end result. Whereas, let's look at the other two, life and liberty. Is a natural right to life being violated? Absolutely. When we drop bombs in Afghanistan and Iraq and kill innocent civilians, that's violating that person's natural right to life. You might say, oh, they're not American citizens. That doesn't matter. It's a natural right. It's irrelevant what nation they're from. If the government is killing innocent civilians overseas, that's violating their natural right. So natural right to life, the natural right to life is being violated. Natural right to liberty is being violated. Healthcare mandates. I mean, that totally violates our right to liberty. It says, we don't care if you don't want healthcare insurance, or we don't care if you don't want to buy it. We're going to force you to and send you to jail or fine you if you don't do it. All this regulation of behavior. If you're not harming someone, yet the government is still saying you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to do this, you have to do that. That's violating natural right to liberty. Of course, the natural right to property, as I've explained throughout this whole video, has been violated as well. All right. To close up, we have to return back to this idea of life, liberty, and property, And we have to remember that the founders were libertarians. These were libertarians. You don't hear about this in history books. It might not be very popular to believe, but in almost every way, Thomas Jefferson, libertarian. All these, James Madison, libertarian. All these guys were libertarians. Libertarians believe in the right to life, liberty, and property, and pursuit of happiness as well. But we recognize that pursuit of happiness comes along with all those things. You can't have the pursuit of happiness if you don't have life, liberty, and property. Anyway, that's all I have to say, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.